All right, boys, we are live for a special week 1 Wednesday night live start sit. Of course, you've got the 2 tons of fun from the Fatboyz podcast. And then you also see on the screen here, you got Patrick. Patrick's getting ready to come out with a new podcast for the Fantasy Holics. So you guys will have to stay tuned for that. That is coming. That is in the works. Those of you who have been with us for a long time know that Patrick is also often a guest to this show. Does a lot of work on Twitter for the page. Patrick, happy to have you with us tonight.
Glad to be here. Happy New Year. Very excited.
Absolutely. It is football season. It is time. Brant, how are you feeling? I mean, to me, it's like one of those things that this week can't get by fast enough.
Yeah, it's here. It's football season. We start off tomorrow with the good matchup. Good matchup on Friday, and then we got to take Saturday off of the NFL, but still get some good matchups in college. And then it's a full slate on Sunday. The NFL did us nicely this first week of football. It's exciting. It's like Christmas week. It's ready to get back on it. And just start watching games and wasting every Sunday away watching football and doing fantasy and everything else. And it's time. It's finally here.
Yeah, and Brant, you brought up college football being a thing again as well, and having games on Saturday. And college football has been fun this year for every big school that's not named Florida State. Patrick, what's the temperature of Seminole fans down there in this great state of Florida?
So my neighborhood is 99% FSU fans. It's probably not going well. I don't know if it's a subject I want to touch with any of them. So
sure.
Gators haven't looked very good. It's could be a long year, but UCF's doing okay. They beat New Hampshire, or I don't think it was a very good test of their team this year, but could be a long year for FSU and UF.
Hey, Miami looks good too. Florida's got so many teams to pick from that there's always one that can be good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had some good games last week with Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Then you had the USC and LSU. Your Mizzou Tigers put a whooping on I don't even know who they played. Illinois,
Murray State. Yeah,
Illinois, where we're from, they put a whooping. Had a good game. I mean, they didn't play much of anybody this week either. It was a good day. It was good fun football. Rough for some of us in the betting world. Me.
Better for others of us in the betting world. Me. But anyway, I digress. So let's start talking about some of these games as we start to wait for some of these questions to come in. So obviously, you got to rip it off like a Band-Aid. We got to talk about the Thursday night contest first, because this may be one of the better games of the season anyway. We all look forward to Patrick Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson. So Patrick, what's something you're looking forward to in this Chiefs Ravens at Chiefs game? Like, are you waiting, just watching for the Taylor Swift interactions? Like, what are you looking forward to in this contest?
I want to see Patrick Mahomes with actual competent receivers catching the ball. It's a stat I wanted to run all off season. I should have, but when you put in Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, there's so many drops. I mean, it's Mahomes. A lot of people were fading Mahomes because it was assumed, well, Mahomes sucked last year. No. I think Mahomes, obviously QB1 is in his range of outcomes, and with some more competent receivers, he's going to have a huge bounce back year. So hopefully Worthy's good. Rashee Rice doesn't look like he'll be suspended at all, if anytime soon. I think is a good bounce back year, and I want to see how Mahomes can mesh with the better receivers than he had last year.
Okay, that's fair. Brant, what are you looking forward to in this game?
I'm looking for Denver. They got probably the best running back they've had in the backfield. If he can stay healthy, knock on wood. We know that Baltimore always has injury problems, but I'm excited to see what that Baltimore offense looks like with Derrick Henry back there. It's going to be a tough thing to run that read option, and with the read option, just a little dump off to Mark Andrews. I'm excited to see this Baltimore Ravens offense and how it looks. We know they're going to have probably a top 10 defense as they do every year. So I'm excited to see what Baltimore is going to look like on that offensive side of the ball. Is Lamar going to go away from running so much and air it out a little bit more and let Derrick Henry take the pounding and not him.
Yeah, and so another thing too, I think that's super interesting, right, is that we have two of the more prolific offenses when it comes to fantasy relevant players going on a Thursday night contest. And first and foremost, I'm embarrassed that neither one of you said don't flex players in Thursday night games. But
I was looking for that in my bag.
We got to shake the rust. We got to shake the rust off, right? But no, I think when you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, you talk about Isaiah Pacheco, who's a top end running back at this point in his career. Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice. A lot of people drafted Xavier Worthy really high in redrafts and rookie drafts. And then you go look at the other side of the ball. You got Lamar Jackson, who's a top 10 quarterback every year. Mark Andrews obviously is banged up, but Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry. It's one of those star-studded games that it's just you can't help but have attention drawn to it. And I think the NFL really did us kind here with not only this game, but the primetime slate for week 1 is pretty darn good this week.
Oh yeah.
All right, boys, we are finally not alone. We've got some other folks chiming in that are degenerates just like we are that are saying football is back, and so are fantasy football and you guys. So, Paul, thank you for being here. Definitely excited to be back. I know Brant and I get tired of the countdown, but him and I have both been on this countdown for weeks. We watch it about like we do the microwave timers. It's beeping towards the end of a meal that we're looking forward to. And Patrick, I know I comfortably speak for you as well as the rest of the Fantasy Holics team. You guys are in that boat with us. Maybe not watching the microwave and burning your mouth as intently as Brant and I do, but definitely with being glad football's back.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that takes the bite out of the microwave and is.
I don't bite the microwave. I don't bite the microwave. I bite the food out of it. But yeah, yes.
I don't know if they do it anymore, but a nerdy thing I used to do, it feels like a safe space here. So in the off season on the Red Zone channel, they play just the best NFL films music, and it'll be April, and I'll just put that channel on, and I'll be listening to just the best football soundtrack. Like, all right, football is 2 months, like the draft is a month away. It's like.
Hey, this is the safest space for something like that. You may not want to tell people that in like a grocery store type of setting, but this is you're safe here. You're among friends who understand, Patrick. All right, so let's move on. We've got a Friday contest this week. As you alluded to, Brant, we've got an overseas game, week 1 this year in Brazil. We have the Packers at the Eagles. This is a 49.5 point line on this game with the Eagles favored by 2.5 points. What are you looking for in this game, Brant?
Looking for 2 high-powered offenses. You have Green Bay, who had Jordan Love, who had looked amazing last year. The young receiving core, who's going to take over number 1. And then you got Josh Jacobs, who's brand new in that backfield. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Devonta Smith, you got A.J. Brown, you got Jahan Dotson now, you got Dallas Goedert, and then they added Saquon Barkley. They lost a couple linemen. Still got Jalen Hurts. What are these 2 teams going to look like this year? That is what I am excited for, and it Vegas says this is going to be a high-scoring game.
Hey, and Vegas isn't wrong often. Sometimes. Patrick, how about you with this game?
Yeah, really excited to see Jacobs and Barkley on 2 different teams. They should really feast. Curious to see how Philadelphia rebounds from last year. They really faltered down the way and just got humiliated in that playoff game. Kind of faded A.J. Brown a little bit this year. I think I overreacted, but curious to see how the Eagles bounce back. And something I thought about was it was a couple of years ago, the Chiefs Rams game was in Mexico, and it was 55-51. It kind of has the same feel. It could be like I'd smash the over. I think one team might have 49 points in this game. It'll be a good one, hopefully. A lot of fantasy points for everybody.
I'm definitely excited about this one as too, like you said, more and more talent on the field here. And again, also Not that anybody has said at this point, but the food that I get to eat because there's football on it, the meals have to be a little bit better when that happens. So we've got some more comments here. I just don't want to ignore anybody real quick. We've got Jennifer saying, "Hey guys, excited for football." Jennifer, glad to see you. Brant and I knew we'd see you tonight, if not Sunday at the latest. So thanks for tuning in with us again. And then we have another one from Frank who says, "And no Kelsey for the tush push. How much will this affect things?" So Brant, I'm gonna let Patrick. Oh, hang on, I clicked the button there. Sorry. I'm gonna let you, Patrick. I'm gonna let you take this one first. I think it's worth mentioning that the Eagles had one of the best ready and waiting centers behind Kelsey. But how much does no Kelsey affect this Eagles offense, especially early?
The transition and the communication between Kelsey and Hurts, you can't really learn that in one off season, but I mean, if you have someone that's a similar size to Kelsey, you should be able to push the pile. I don't think they'll completely go away from it, or they'll still use it, or maybe you could do like a fake tush push and everybody's huddled up on the yard line, and Hurts just takes 2 steps back and flicks the ball in the end zone.
Brant?
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting. I already expect to see them go away from that. That was one of the reasons they did add Barkley in my mind, is to take some of that punishment off of Jalen Hurts. You and me talked about that earlier this offseason. And you know, I'm very, under wraps Philadelphia Eagles fan because of how much I rely on them in our dynasty league. But I think it's going to take a step back. I really do think that it's going to be a lot of Saquon Barkley when it comes down to the red zone and those short yardage, or like Patrick said, the small little dump offs to Dallas Goedert or AJ Brown, or even maybe Dotson just coming right across the top, because nobody's going to be really looking at Dotson with all the wide receivers they have out there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. My thing is like you alluded to, Brant, you and I have debated and talked about a lot. What does this Eagles offense look like with Saquon Barkley, which is a much different animal than DeAndre Swift? And I can't help imagine that it's going to be Saquon's volume goes down, I think, but his volume is going to be better. More effective, I guess, is the terminology I'm looking for here. He'll have more goal line looks, but I wonder if Saquon has more goal line looks, does that hurts his value? Because he's Hurts is, I feel like if you take away Hurts's, 15 touchdowns that he seems to find, you almost kind of look at a guy like you and I didn't like too many years ago, Brant, Lamar Jackson, saying a running back at the position. So I'm interested to see if him and Saquon can coexist, which I think they will. I think Nick Sirianni is a good enough coach if he can put like the pride aside, but we will see. Got a couple more comments coming in us here. Ryan says you have Barkley with the quads to give the extra push for the two. So maybe we call it a quad push this year, not a tush push. Jumbo, good evening, fellas. Jumbo, good to see you. And then Frank says again, if I fake it and toss some TDs to AJ Brown and be okay with that. Yeah. So there's another one too. Like AJ Brown, like Patrick, you alluded to, you kind of faded him a little bit this year. Brant and I did a trade in our home dynasty league this year, where I had acquired my first part of the Eagles offense. I sent him a trade that I didn't think he'd even entertain, and he countered back one time. It was accepted, done and over with. I sent him nuts and bolts of it. I sent him DK Metcalf essentially for Devonta Smith, and I don't know how to feel about the fact that he snatched it up so quick. So we'll see. I'm not a huge Devonta Smith fan, nor am I a huge Jalen Hurts fan, but we'll see how that one plays out over the course of the season.
Ryan Grubb made me feel so good about it after finally getting to watch that first team offense there in Seattle and beating DK on that fade with the first and the only drive that Seattle did. So he made me feel a lot better with that trade too.
Okay. All right, Pat. Go ahead.
The Eagles thing, like, it's something that just occurred to me. How many times did the Eagles get the ball from like the 3, 2, or 1 yard line last year to utilize a tush push? If they have Saquon Barkley and he's running it in from 10, 20, they might not even have that many opportunities if they aren't getting the ball that close. So they could not need or use the tush push at all if they aren't getting the ball from the 2 or the 1 or the half yard.
I have to imagine I'm not an NFL head coach. I'm not an NFL GM. I don't I don't act like I am, except for on NCAA Football 25. But with that being said, I can't imagine as a head coach or a GM, you want your franchise cornerback to go out and run that many sneaks in a goal line formation. Look what happened with Patrick Mahomes a few years back in Kansas City. I think they'd be happy to score more touchdowns from the 10-yard line than the 1-yard line this year. And I think that would mean their offense was really working as well. So, I think we can all agree on that, that Saquon probably does diminish some of those tush pushes. Because, again, instead of tush pushing, you can throw a toss to Saquon, and he's going to score from the 1-yard line. That's like one of those things that he just does and does well. So,
or more Philly specials, and Jalen Hurts is catching multiple touchdowns.
Hey, it still counts for fantasy, right? We
Yes.
still get points all of that. So we take those. All right. What Patrick, I'm going to start with you. What's one game you're looking forward to from this early morning slate on Sunday?
I think it's early. Let me double check. I don't want to steal your thunder with Falcon Steelers. That'll be
you go right ahead. That is not my thunder.
A game that no one might have on their radar, but might have a lot of fantasy implications. Cardinals Bills. I really want to see what the Bills do without Stephon Diggs, and I love me some Marvin Harrison. So I want to see that. Whatever that Cardinals offense might look like, it's week 1, everybody's healthy with Marvin and Trey McBride and James Conner and Kyler. Oh, that could be a low-key awesome game.
Yeah, you come in, you said you don't want to steal my thunder with the Falcons, and you steal my thunder with my favorite game of the week. That's the one. That's the one. No, that's the one I want to watch too, Patrick, for all the reasons you just said. I love Marvin Harrison this year. Anywhere that I could go get Kyler Murray, I went and got Kyler Murray this year. Trey McBride versus Dalton Kincaid, who the Fantasy Holics team that you're the head captain basically of that rankings team. You guys have them 1 and 2, I believe, this week. So that's definitely a premier matchup. Josh Allen, James Cook, like there's a lot to love in that matchup, and it's
these defenses could suck. I think the Bills have lost a lot of pieces, and the Cardinals didn't have a lot of pieces to begin with.
Real quickly before I move on to Brant about what Brant's excited for, Frank did say, come on, Patrick, tell him the Giants. So you let Frank down by not being excited to watch the Giants and the Vikings, but we'll move on. We'll try to get Frank back on board here, Patrick. So Brant, tell me what game
J.J. McCarthy was playing, sure. But
that's fair. Understood.
So that game that you guys were just talking about, that the Cardinals Bills, that is actually tied for the 3rd highest point spread over under this week at 48.5. So they're not looking for a whole lot of defense in that game. So I'm going to go down. You went from talking about one rookie. I'm going to go talk about another. I'm looking forward to this Tennessee at Chicago game. Let's see what the Chicago offense looks like. So Chicago was ranked number 1 defensively. I think it was week 8 when the trade deadline, week 9 when the trade deadline hit, and they got Montez Sweat. They were number 1 ranked defensively last year. That's one of the quarterback's best friends is a number 1 ranked defense or a highly ranked defense. So I'm excited to see what this Bears offense looks like. They went out, they got them all these pieces. Rome is there. I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, be a little homer. I get to see him out there on the field, and we're here in Illinois, so we know we'll get the game live. I'm excited to see Rome's first professional game. And then Tennessee, you look at it and you're like, it's the Titans. Okay, cool. But let's look at it. Low key, they went out. They signed one of the best centers in free agency. They drafted one of the top tackles in this draft. They got Will Levis to be underneath center, who has a huge arm. They added Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. They still have DeAndre Hopkins there. And then you go over to their defense where they added, if I'm not mistaken, like 3 of the top 10 secondary pieces this offseason. Tennessee could low-key be a team that is in every single game. They're going to be the Rams of this year, where everybody just looks at them. They're like, what did they do? And then all of a sudden they're going to come out of nowhere and they're going to drop points on you, and they're going to play defense, and they're going to be in every single game, if not winning every single game. This is a team that could low-key compete for this division if you really look at it deep in their depth chart. So it's going to be an exciting game for me. You got the young rookie going against what should be a decent defense and a decent all-around team.
I look for Caleb Williams to throw in at least one interception in this game. I don't know about 3 top 10, but I do know L'Jarius Sneed went there. So that right off the rip is an upgrade to that Tennessee Titans secondary. So and we do have a follow-up question on this game while we're talking about it, Brant. And since this was your game, I'm going to let you start us off with this one. Aaron says, how are we feeling about Keenan Allen? Heel injuries can be lingering and annoying.
Keenan Allen always has lingering injuries that are annoying for all fantasy owners. If he plays, honestly, if you don't have to start him, I don't know if I am. Not because you probably draft him as your third or fourth. I don't remember his ADP. I avoided him at all costs because I still think that Rome's going to put in the work to take some of the time with the older wideout. And I think DJ Moore is still the number one there. So hopefully you don't have to start him. I would like to see the other options. I would like to see how Keenan Allen even fits in this offense. That's one of the things that I'm never a fan of in fantasy is when a new wide receiver goes to a team and I have to draft him so high where I'm forced to start him week 1. I want to see how he integrates into that offense. So I'd keep a very close eye on that, and I'd like to see what your other options are of possibly starting someone outside of Keenan Allen.
Yeah, and then Frank followed this question up and said, Aaron, someone said Keenan was out of shape. Anyone hear this? I know on Hard Knocks they brought up the fact that he'd put on a little bit of weight. I think he's up to like 230 pounds, give or take, which is quite a bit for a slot receiver. So I think that's definitely something to worth monitoring. But I also think Keenan Allen's such a crafty route runner. He could probably be 300 pounds and find space in the defenses. Probably not much yard after catch at 300 pounds, but I think Keenan Allen will be okay. It'll just depend on that heel injury. Patrick, what's your take on Keenan Allen for this season in fantasy?
Yeah, I heard the fat comments too, and then watching a preseason game or two, for what it's worth, the TV crew was zooming in on him and said, he doesn't look fat. It was almost like fake news or something. I don't think he played much, if at all, in the preseason. But with DJ Moore, if all three play on I don't know how often they will, Moore, Odunze, and Allen, he's gonna get open. He's gonna, like you said, no yak. He could have a ton of catches. And just that whole offense, like DeAndre Swift's going to be out there too. Cole Kmet. There's just so much room to operate as long as Matt Eberflus calls a little bit better plays. I mean, I'm excited. I've got a good deal of Keenan Allen shares. I'm excited.
It sounds to me like what Patrick is saying is that Keenan Allen might be low-key anorexic because Brant and I know firsthand the camera adds at least 100 pounds. And if you're saying Keenan Allen looked just, normal, then he probably is out of shape on the skinny end. We need to get the guy a sandwich.
He hasn't had
I
one
will say
yet.
I will say the only place I owned, one of the only places I owned Keenan Allen, I did ship him in a super flex for Baker Mayfield to the basically the podfather of our page in Jeremiah in a trade in one of the Fantasy Holic Dynasty leagues. So there you go. There's how I feel on Keenan Allen at this point. So Aaron responded, he said, appreciate the feedback. I did hear about his current shape. He had a great fantasy season last year, but again, like you said, adjusting the new offense and father time. And those are things to monitor. Again, a lot of this, you could make that argument for we don't know what it's going to shake out. I mean, Justin Jefferson's playing with a different quarterback. How long will Aaron Rodgers fantasy football? That's why we're all degenerates and why we do this, because there's so many what ifs in fantasy. So it's definitely something worth noting that a lot of guys' situations are a little bit different this year. All right, here we go. First start sit question. Tony says pick 3 in PPR. He's got Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, so 2 guys from that first game Thursday night. Cooper Kupp in the Sunday night game against the Lions. I assume that's Mike Evans of the Buccaneers who play the Commanders. And then last but not least, Reed on Friday night. Patrick, how are you feeling about this? Is there one that's real easy to take off that list for you, or where are you at on this question?
Yeah. With all the other choices, I would not do Reed because they already have Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, Romeo Dubes. Might not be I mean, he could have a great, but especially in PPR, he might only have 2, 3, 4 catches. But Evans, Rice, and Cup feel like a lock to me. I'd even hesitate on Zay Flowers a little bit.
Okay. Brant?
I'm rolling with the same three: Rice, Cup, and Evans. I love Rashee Rice. You and me have went out in our co-on league, made sure we got him. We're huge on Rice this year. Cup, I think, is in for a big bounce back. I've talked about how I think Puka Nacua may have been a flash of the pan, and everyone's panicking, or not panicking. Everyone's jumping to the boat here. I don't think he's a top 10 wideout this year. I do think Cup is, and I love Mike Evans. He's always secure. Zay Flowers, I'm a little sketchy on this year with Mark Andrews still there. And then all the talks about how decent Bateman actually looked. I'm not going to say he's going to go take his spot. Not going to jump on my Bateman bandwagon. But that offense just makes me a little nervous with the wide receivers there. And you still got Derrick Henry and the rushing ability of Lamar Jackson. So Flowers is a guy I'm kind of waiting to see how it goes. I know you and me traded for him because I do think the future's bright, but I'd like to see how this year looks.
All right, so I'm actually going to go Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, and Mike Evans, because what if, Brant, what if you're wrong, and what if Puka Nacua is a top 10 wide receiver? What if that offense does run through him and Cooper Kupp is a thing of the past? Because, again, like we just talked about, Father Time is undefeated. I'm not saying I necessarily believe those things, but I do think the Rams wide receiving core is one I kind of want to play cautiously. I do think Matthew Stafford's a good enough quarterback to support him still, 2 good wide receivers. But, you know, we got all this talk about Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is going to have decent amount of volume to be back where he is. So I'm pumping the brakes on this Rams offense just a smidge. Obviously, if you have these guys and you don't have the options that Tony has here, I think you have to play them. But, man, listen, I think until I see – at least a game, I'm not starting those guys super confidently, especially not over a guy like Zay Flowers, who I think is going to, at least early in the season, be the number 1 target until Mark Andrews is fully healthy in Baltimore. Moving right along, Paul says, I'm excited about the Jacksonville versus Miami and the battle of the Floridas. So there you go, Pat. You got somebody talking about something from your neck of the woods. And he follows it up by saying he wants to see Brian. Hey, that's the way to start off every news story. A Florida man. I want to see if Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be that rookie wide receiver that may give Marvin Harrison Jr. some competition on the rookie watch. I'm not as big of a believer in Christian Kirk rebounding as Lawrence is number 1. So first of all, Patrick, I want you to go on record. Who's winning Miami versus the Jacksonville game first? Who's the best football team out of those two sides of Florida?
Well, the best regular season teams, Miami. They playoff time, they tend to disappear. I don't think either defense is very good. The Dolphins added Jalen Ramsey, and it'll be a track meet, nice and warm down there. I think Kirk is the safety net. Kirk will definitely get the safety net PPR safe floor there. Thomas might be the home run threat, and we all know Gabe Davis is going to get 1 or 2 targets. I like Brian Thomas. Not so much PPR yet. He has to earn that trust. This game could be a coming out party for him.
Okay. Brant, your thoughts on Christian Kirk versus Brian Thomas Jr.?
I like Christian Kirk to be the number 1 this year. I do think Brian Thomas Jr. will have a decent year too. We saw how Christian Kirk and Jacksonville really rolled together 2 years ago before Ridley came there. I think Christian Kirk is that safety net for Trevor Lawrence. So I like Kirk as the number 1. I think you'll see flashes of Brian Thomas. I don't know if you'll see consistency week in and week out fantasy wise, but I do think you'll see some flashes of him.
The worst
This
thing
is-
for
this is
Thomas is because they've got Kirk, Brian Thomas, Gabriel Davis, Evan Ingram, ETN, like every person on the field. It's not like they have a running back with stone hands or a tight end that's not very good. There's so many good options.
And
They're
Tank
just
Bigsby catches the
having
ball
volume.
extremely well off the bench as well.
Yeah.
So, but I do want to bring, and you just said his name, so thank you for that. But this is why fantasy football is great, because you're both wrong. The number one target in Jacksonville is clearly going to be Evan Ingram again this year, with flashes of both Kirk and Brian Thomas, depending on the week. So now that we've got that out here, let's go ahead and move on from the Jacksonville game. Jumbo says, is Olave actually going to get hyper targeted from Carr? Myth or real talk? I'm going to start with this one because it's in my division, and then I'll let you two both take this one as well. If Derek Carr wants to keep his job, he better be getting that ball into Olave's hands, because I think there's going to be some rumbling out of Saints fans if they start slow this year that are going to demand to see Spencer Rattler. So I think Carr will hyper target Olave. I mean, let's be honest. How many times are you going to throw to Rashid Shaheed or A.T. Perry or Taysom Hill, as gimmicky as that is? Yeah, I know there's still Alvin Kamara, but if I would be shocked if Chris Olave doesn't lead the Saints team in targets by at least 30 targets this year. Boys, what say you on that one?
I absolutely agree. I think Chris Olave is the one there. He's going to have to get hyper targeted. That team's going to be kind of a struggle bus to see going on. Like you said, Spencer looked pretty good in the preseason. I know it's preseason, so he could be coming for Carr's job. I think Olave has to be hyper targeted in that offense.
Okay, Patrick, you in agreement here on Olave?
Might be a microwave hot take here, but the Saints might be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. I think Dennis Allen might be one of the worst coaches, and they're the opposite of the Jaguars. They have such little in the way of, they have Olave and Kamara. And I mean, Olave is going to get a lot of double coverage. I love the talent. I hate the situation. He has to be hyper targeted, or man, I like, what else who else, like you said, who else are you going to throw to?
I do like
has to
A.T.
be
Perry, but
hyper-targeted.
we'll see. Our resident Saints fan says the rumblings are definitely true, essentially. So there we go. That solves that. Let's move on. We got a tight end question here from Tony. Tony says Kyle Pitts or Ferguson, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys against the Browns this week. How are we feeling about this one, fellas? No, nobody wants to be the first one to say stop.
I mean, I'll go with Kyle
because the knives come out when you're wrong. I'm just telling you.
I'm saying Kyle Pitts. I'm going with Kyle Pitts. I'm starting Kyle Pitts. I'm high on him. You and me are talking about this pre-show. I really don't have him anywhere. Unfortunately, I was unable to get him in most of my drafts this year. But I think Kyle Pitts is due for a huge season with Kirk Cousins under center.
Okay, Patrick.
Love me some Kirk Cousins. I think Pittsburgh might be one of the worst teams in the league too this year. So just from a defense standpoint, I'd much rather start someone against the Steelers than the Browns. So I will go Pitts. Hopefully that hamstring. He tweeted that his hamstring's fine. So
he did. Yes, he did. We talked about that pre-show. I also will go Kyle Pitts here. I'll be the homer, but I wanted you guys to do that first before I went there. It's feast or famine year for Kyle Pitts. I think it starts week 1, so we'll see how that looks. Matt says Jerome Ford, Zamir White, or Chuba Hubbard. Pick one and half-point PPR. Patrick, which one of these three do you want to start?
Man, are any of them real pass catchers? Well, Hubbard might be the. I hate Hubbard's matchup. Zamir White finished the season really strong. The Raiders look really good under Antonio Pierce. I don't love any of. I would pick Zamir White, but don't love any of them.
Okay, Brant.
I'm going Zamir White here as well. I think his pass catching upside is there. There's not a whole lot knocking on his door. I think he's going to be the workhorse for the Raiders. Any other week except for going against Dallas, I'd probably lean completely Jerome Ford. but I'm going to have to go with Zamir White for this week.
I'm going Zamir White as well. Another three-peat here from us. That's we're on pace. South SCO says Goff versus the Rams or Tua versus Jacksonville. Brant, which quarterback are you starting here?
I'm going with I think they're both going to be great this week, but I'm going to go with the highest point spread of the week, and I'm going to go with Goff versus the Rams there, that Detroit Lions game. And Rams, it could end up in a huge shootout. You could see 30-plus points for both teams, so I'm going to go with Goff.
Patrick?
Coin flip. Man. Neither of them are very mobile. I mean, Tua might be the most mobile of the two. Yeah, I don't think either secondary is great. Wow. Tua. Give me Tua. But barely.
I'm also going Tua here. I love both of these quarterbacks. I like both of these quarterbacks this week. But anytime you got a guy throwing passes to Tyreek Hill, who is just an absolute human cheat code with the ball in his hands, I want to take some of that if I can have that. So I'll take Tua. And again, very, very much like Patrick said, by slight margins here. Brant, we're going to start with you on this one as well. Got a follow-up question from South SCO. Javonte Williams versus your Seahawks or Aaron Jones versus the New York Football Giants?
I'm going to go with Jones here. Seattle's defense is I know gets torched by the run and the pass to running backs quite a bit over the last 2 years. I'm going to avoid that just because I'm kind of avoiding this backfield to see how it shakes out there in Denver. So that's what makes me more nervous than my Seahawks defense. I'm going to go with Jones there because I don't see a whole lot of players behind him taking away carries. So I'm going to go with Jones because I don't think Minnesota is going to want to lose this game on Sam Darnold's arm.
Okay, Patrick?
On a slate of so many good games, we get this one. I had written off Aaron Jones all of last season. I thought he was done. He looked like his feet were in quicksand. And then he had like 4 amazing games in a row, and then he stomped all over Dallas. So I'll go Aaron Jones. I don't love it, but Aaron Jones.
I'm going the opposite way of this. Like you said, Brant, your Seattle Seahawks defense was gouged by the run by every team last year, it seemed like. And I feel like I'm at a point where if I've got a running back going against a defense that needs to prove that they can stop the run, I'm going to go with that. We also look at the factor of Bo Nix starting first game, on the road at the 12. It's going to be a raucous environment. How do you settle a rookie quarterback down? Lots of quick passes out to his tight end, lots of quick passes out to his running back. I don't love Javonte. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not a huge Javonte Williams fan. And if you were to ask me this question, but in a different format, is Javonte Williams or Aaron Jones score more fantasy points this year? I take Aaron Jones. That New York Giants front 7 is scary as hell out there with Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, just to name a few players. Again, Brant, no offense, there's not one name on the defensive line in Seattle that really makes me tremble. So I think Leonard Williams could be that guy for you guys, but I want to see him in that Seattle defensive line stop the run a few times before I'm willing to start sitting running backs against them. But again, South SCO, I am outvoted on that one. So and then one more question from South SCO. Need 2 wide receivers and 2 flex. He's got Marvin Harrison, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Romeo Doubs, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Javonte Williams, or Gus Edwards. Patrick, I'm going to start with you. Give me 1 for the flex. Give me 1 for the wide receiver.
If it's PPR, I would start as many receivers as I could. Flex, okay. I would who's a later game? Yeah, I guess Kupp in the flex and Harrison starting wide receiver.
Okay, Brant, how about you?
I'm doing the same. Actually, I'm going to go with Kupp in the flex, and I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk as the starter. Nothing against
He needs
Harrison.
two, needs two of each.
So I'm going to go with Harrison, Cup, Ayuk.
You don't get to pick Harrison and Cup. Patrick's already got them in our lineup. Pick somebody else.
And we're going to go with
piggyback in here. You're too big for piggybacks.
That's not true. If you find somebody bigger, I might be able to. I bet Harrison and Cup could piggyback me. I'm going to go with Ayuk and Russell Wilson sucks. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go JSN. They targeted him twice in that one drive where the first team offense he actually got targeted 3 times. He caught 2. I'm going to go with JSN. I think he's going to be a little sleeper pick this year, so I think I like him in the flex.
Gus Edwards starts this year off strong for the Chargers, 2 touchdowns. Jim Harbaugh's the coach that likes to run the ball. We already know that about Greg Roman, his offensive coordinator as well. I typically would agree with you guys on starting the wide receivers. I ain't starting nothing from Justin Fields or Russell Wilson until I see it. Dobbs is a scary situation because which Green Bay wide receivers are going to be this week? JSN, I still believe, is going to be 3rd in the pecking order. And I already said I don't really love Javonte Williams, but I do love me some Gus Edwards this week against the Raiders defense. All right. We got a question, Brant. I know this is one you're going to like because I know you took this guy in our rookie draft for our home league this year. Frank says, will Brooks take over for Chuba this year?
I think the minute he's healthy, he starts to see the field, and I don't think it's more than 2 or 3 weeks after he starts seeing the field that he takes it over full time. I think Brooks is the guy. Now, I'm not going to say Brooks is going to lead you to the promised lands of a championship this year because Carolina could be that bad again, but I think he's going to take over for Chuba pretty quick.
Patrick?
I don't know. Like Brant said, if it's a lost season, there's zero reason to push Brooks out there. And Chuba Hubbard is not that bad. We're not talking like Damian Pierce bad here. I think Hubbard's better than people give him credit for. And Brooks's college profile was not that impressive. He didn't play. I mean, he was behind Bijan Robinson at Texas, behind Roshan Johnson at Texas. There's not a whole lot of tape on Brooks. I think Brooks is a little overrated. And save this at me if I'm wrong. I'll whatever. I think even when Brooks is back, it could be a 50-50 timeshare. Or they just give Brooks passing down to save some wear and tear.
Yeah, I think Patrick too, and I'll speak because I know Brant and I typically focus more on the dynasty aspect. This has by far been one of the worst running back classes in a dynasty landscape in quite some time. And I think back to Chuba Hubbard coming out of college, who had one of the best college profiles we've seen for a running back in forever. And I just can't help but imagine if Brooks and Chuba were in the same draft class, would anybody even be talking about Jonathan Brooks? I say no, they probably wouldn't for the exact reasons you're talking about. He sat behind 2 studs that he couldn't get in front of on the field. Then he does get on the field. He looks good in his games, but it is the Texas offense, and then he ends up getting hurt. Don't know how he's going to bounce back from that injury. It is the Carolina Panthers, so there may be a running back that's not signed in the NFL right now that may end up being the leading running back in this backfield just because, like you said, they're going to be bad again this year, I believe. And maybe they don't rush Jonathan Brooks back. Maybe they do. I don't know. I was a huge Chuba fan coming out. He hasn't really shown anything in the NFL either to this point. So we'll see what it looks like. But I think anybody in a dynasty landscape that was able to get Jonathan Brooks is probably very excited about it because there's no pressure to play him probably because nobody who had an early pick is going out and grabbing Jonathan Brooks with his injury designation. It's those teams in the back half of the draft. So they do probably have that luxury to sit and wait on him. And I think that is going to be one of those situations in the fantasy landscape. Like let's sit and see what it looks like. Let's see how he comes back from the injury. And let's see what it looks like in the NFL where things are a little bit different. You're not Texas picking on, smaller schools. So it'd be interesting to see how that shakes out.
I read a stat that kind of blew my mind. I saw that Chuba Hubbard had more yards, catches, touchdowns in 13 games than Jonathan Brooks did in his entire collegiate career. I was like, oh, okay.
And if you remember, right, when Chuba Hubbard was drafted, he went to like the worst landing spot possible in Carolina behind Christian McCaffrey at the time, and it was one of those situations that it was like this couldn't get much worse for this guy, and then everybody forgot how great he was at Oklahoma State, except for me. I love Chuba Hubbard. All right, so Kevin says, who should I flex? Xavier Worthy, Zamir White, George Pickens, Jamison Williams, or Austin Eckler? Man, how do you boys feel about this one?
Never flex Thursday.
Never flex Thursday, right? Brant, who's the one that you're instantly like just taking them off the chopping block? Like, don't want no part of this player this week.
Jamison Williams is a guy that comes to my mind. He hasn't really shown a whole lot when he is on the field. I'd like to see how a full off season is with him. And really, I'm in the same boat with Worthy as well. And like Patrick said, we don't flex on Thursdays. So Worthy and Williamson, I jumped just to completely off the board for me.
Okay. Patrick?
Eckler's a total no for me, and I don't like Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. I might flex Jameson. If it's that high scoring, give me a dart throw in that game. If you could start Xavier Worthy and move someone else to your flex, I'd like that too. But I would do Jameson or Worthy would be my choices.
I might be one of the only people in fantasy football or the industry who think in this nature. But I have to imagine if this is the list of players that we're talking about for the flex, there's much better players in the lineup. These guys right here aren't the guys that are going to win or lose you your week. So I'm going to say, personally, start Zamir White. I think that's the safest name listed out of these five here that will give you the safest production. Probably one of the better chances to find the end zone because he is probably at least a top 3 option for his team, where I don't know if any of these others necessarily are. That's where I lean, just because I want that from my flex anyway. I'm looking for that high floor, maybe not a great ceiling, but a high floor. Kevin follows it up by asking, I have Njoku, thinking about dropping Trey Benson for Isaiah Likely, Jonnu Smith, or Dallas Goedert. Would you guys drop Trey Benson for any of those tight ends? And if so, which one? Patrick, I'll start with you.
As a resident Njoku hater, I would say drop Njoku. Okay, I'm kidding. Goddard's a really good option, but I don't know if I'd want to drop Trey Benson. If anybody else would drop. Answering it now, I'd say no. Stay put. If you could trade Njoku after a good week or two, James Conner's not going to play 18 games, 17 games. I would hold off for now, but I really like Dallas Goedert if he's available.
Brant, are you in agreement here that you hold Benson and ride Njoku till the wheels fall off? Or
I'm holding Benson. The only way that may change my mind is if Mark Andrews got ruled out. But yeah, no, I'm holding Benson, and I'll also go ahead and start Njoku. I am not a fan of Njoku this year at all, but I think it might be your safest play. You and me have talked about this multiple times in this offseason on how I feel about Njoku, but I'm going to hold on to Trey Benson, and I'll ride Njoku this week because it's going to be a tough week for the Browns playing against Dallas for anybody on that field. So I'm just going to have to ride Njoku and hope maybe he finds the end zone.
Yeah, this is like answering your own tight end question with Goddard and Njoku for the first couple of weeks for you, Brent. We've had that discussion off air numerous times.
Thank Lord Bowers is down there.
Raymond says, I got Jalen Wright in the 13th round. Do you think there's a chance he could be a league winner? He says he also has Blake Corum. Brant, what do you think about Jalen Wright's chance to be a bell cow league winner?
I don't think he's going to be a league winner. I think you'll see flashes like you did with A-Chain last year, where he'll get the ball and he'll rush for 50 yards and a touchdown and have another carry for like another 20. So he'll have 70 yards and a touchdown that week on like 2 carries. I think he'll be a flash play. Hopefully you pick him on the right weeks. You and me had this discussion. I'm going to go and I'm going to talk about Blake Corum for real fast. You and me had this discussion, and at first I was pounding the table. Kyron Williams. Then this whole he's going to return kicks comes out, and I'm like, hold up. I have to give credit where credit's due. Finley did call this one early that the split may be a lot more than what I'm seeing, and I think that split. I think Blake Corum's going to end up being startable after that came out. I understand they want to put the ball in Kyron Williams' hands more, but I don't think that means the backfield. I think Blake Corum's going to find himself in the backfield a lot more. So I would be safer. I would feel safer with Blake Corum than I do Wright.
Patrick, how do you feel about Jalen Wright and Blake Corum?
I'm a lot more optimistic about Wright. We've seen so little of Devon Achane. He's not the traditional size you'd like to see for a bell cow, or not even a bell cow, like back that gets a lot of the work. And Mostert's year last year was kind of an outlier. He hasn't stayed healthy either for that long of a stretch. Wright may as well be this year's Devon Achane. It's the same offense, little bigger, a little more durable. I'm a lot more excited about Jalen Wright than I don't know. I mean, I guess Corum has a similar opportunity because Kyron Williams missed a couple games last year, but I think the McDaniels rushing offense benefits Wright more. I'm excited about both.
Okay, I'm going to say this. I think Blake Corum's got a much better chance to be a league winner than Jalen Wright this year, just because we've seen what happens when there's nobody else to carry the ball in LA. They hyper hand off to Kyron Williams and everybody in the leagues and fantasy circles are drooling over him. I'm not a Kyron Williams lover. Thought he was undersized and slow coming out in college. From college, so did every NFL expert. And I'm not saying NFL experts can't be wrong, but metrics don't lie. Eventually, I think that size and the speed catches up to him. And I do think Blake Corum being their first draft pick on the offensive side of the ball speaks volumes to where they thought their need was on that side of the ball as well. And I'm less worried about the catching punts for Kyron Williams because this is just a thing Sean McVay does. Kyron Williams returned punts last year. He's had Cooper Kupp return punts. Sean McVay does try to get his electric guys with the ball in their hands. And how many punts in the NFL are actually returned versus fair caught or just left alone to begin with? I don't care about that. For me, it's always been more of a I don't love or trust Kyron Williams as much as I think Blake Corum could come in and take that backfield over. I think this is a league that or a team that eventually is at worst a 50-50 split for both of these guys towards the second half of the season. I've got a couple more questions we're going to try to get through here in about the last 7 minutes we got left. Kevin says, Dak Prescott or Caleb Williams for week one? He has Cleveland D, who plays the Cowboys. Patrick, how are you feeling about starting Caleb Williams over Prescott this week?
It's a tough defense, but I'd rather take a safer play week one, and I'd go Dak there.
Okay. Brant?
I'm taking Dak. I'm not starting Caleb Williams right out the gate. Let's see how he does against Tennessee. So I'm going to handle with Dak, who's the safer season play.
Dak finished quarterback 3 in fantasy for a reason last year. It's Dak for me as well. Joe says PPR need one running back and one flex. He's got Brian Robinson Jr., Chuba Hubbard, Evan Ingram, or Jaden Reed. Mr. Yawns, I'm going to start with you. Who's your running back and who's your flex out of this one?
Brian Robinson Jr. and Evan Ingram.
Okay.
That's correct.
Very, very concise. Patrick, how are you feeling about that? Sam, are you on the same page or?
Yep, I would do the same. I love Brian Robinson this year. He's going to be terrific. Yeah, I like him more than Chuba, even though the Bucs are a tough battle also. But I like Robinson's chances for success better than Chuba, and Ingram's should I mean, he's going to get a lot more targets and catches than Reed this week.
Okay. Yeah, I think again we'll be in agreement here. I think Brian Robinson ends up being Brian Robinson for me is the type of guy that ends up being a league winner this year, drafted late. And then Evan Ingram is too darn good. Like I said, I personally think he ends up leading the Jaguars in targets and receptions this year. So that's an easy one for me. I flex him as well. So, all right, boys, we're in agreement on those. Let's talk about real quick. Patrick, give me a player that was drafted pretty high, decent ADP that could bust week one.
Bust week one. Jamar Chase, if he hasn't stretched, if he hasn't been doing any cardio lately, be a little hesitant. I mean, you got to start him, but I wouldn't expect a ton.
How much passing is involved in that game against the New England Patriots?
Yeah. They probably won't need to do much.
I wouldn't think so. This might be that game where you finally see that Zach Moss, Chase Brown situation shake out. Brant, who's
a 20-3 game with hardly any fantasy goodness.
That's very possible. Unless you own Evan McPherson. Brant, who do you look at this week as a guy that you think is going to end up busting?
I'm going to look at a top 5 draft pick in most leagues, and that's Breece Hall. He goes against the San Francisco 49ers, who had 0 issues this offseason with their defense. There's still a lot there. I could see this being a let's focus and let's focus in on stopping that run. And I understand Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game, but let's see what he can do coming back from that real serious injury. I think they could focus in on shutting down Breece Hall. I think he could be a huge bust. Most places have him projected for 18 to 20 points. I could see him being a 12 to 15 point back this week. So still at a decent RB2, but I don't think he lives up to that top 5 draft pick this week.
Okay, I've got we talked about it a little bit before on the show already, but I've got Aaron Jones as a bust this week. I think a lot of people are really excited about Aaron Jones in the Minnesota purple and yellow, but I'm nervous about that Giants D line. I think Sam Darnold could torch Sam Darnold. Yes, I said that could torch the Giants secondary, but I'm nervous about Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau when it comes to the run game. So that's Aaron Jones is my one that we talked about Aaron Rodgers, and I'm currently in the process of looking up. Leonard Floyd was the one who tackled him last year in that game, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I just saw that Leonard Floyd is on San Francisco again. That's what I was looking at. But Aaron Jones is a guy that I am fading this year. So looks like we got one last question. We might be able to get to one more after this one if somebody types one fast. Raymond says, do y'all think Drake London finally breaks out this season? And what are your thoughts on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Brant, let's hear your take on Drake London and then your take on Marvin Harrison.
Leonard Floyd is a San Francisco 49er. I'll start with Drake London. I think this is a huge year for him. We've seen Kirk Cousins year after year after year support number 1 wideouts. I love Drake London this year. My thoughts on Marvin Harrison, let's see how that offense looks. I'm slow on trusting him. I know where he was drafted in most ADPs. You're going to have to start him. I think it'll be a serviceable fantasy year for him. I don't know if I trust him to live up to that top 10 ADP that he was drafted at.
Okay. Patrick, your thoughts on Drake and Marvin Harrison?
I mean, now or never for Drake London. I mean, he's been bailed out by Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke for 2 years in a row, but he's in, I guess, Arthur Smith's play calling. It's now or never for him. If he doesn't produce this year and he stays healthy the whole season, as does Kirk Cousins, I'm excited. I've got him in a couple places, but if he doesn't put up this year, if Pitts doesn't produce, I might be like, they might be dead to me.
Okay.
On my draft.
I think as a Falcons fan, I think I think Drake London's been the most consistent piece on offense the last couple of years, and he really did make some turds shine with Heineke and Ritter on certain plays. So I'm excited and happy for these guys to get a competent quarterback. I say I'm going to go into this season as a Falcons fan and just be relaxed and be excited that we have a relevant offense, but I won't be. I'll be freaking out and screaming at my TV and stomping and pacing and doing things that normal human beings don't do. Also, I want to add to Marvin Harrison is a wide receiver 1 week 1. I definitely see a top 12 finish for him this week. I think Trey McBride's going to have a good week too, but who the hell else is catching the ball in Arizona besides Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride? Brant, I know you've got this fantasy world in your brain. I could picture you seeing Michael Wilson having this great season. It's Marvin Harrison, it's Trey McBride, and probably a fair amount of James Conner, but I think Marvin Harrison's drafted number 4 overall. They're going to put the ball in his hands a lot this week and this season overall. I actually have put money. I won't say how much because I don't want anybody to think I need to be in a loony bin. I think there's an outside chance Marvin Harrison leads the NFL in receiving yards this year, just because of how much targeted he will be. All right, let's get through a couple more really, really fast ones. Just a quick snap of a finger. DJ Moore or Jerome Ford in the flex, Patrick?
Oh, DJ Moore is a must start every week.
Okay, Brant, you in agreement?
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, that's 3 for 3. Kevin says he has Achane, Trey Benson. Should he hold Benson or pick up Jalen Wright for the insurance on Achane? Brant, insurance or Benson?
Go get the insurance because you also got Mostert in front, and both of those could end up being hurt.
Patrick?
I think we all might be a little too high on Achane. He's had 5 games with more than 10 carries last year. And if you look back to the box scores, his huge games were his coming out party in the game where Denver completely quit. I think another one was against the Giants. And then his third big game was against the Ravens when the Dolphins were down by 30 or 40 points. Achane may just be a lot of garbage time stats. He's a really, really good player, but we've seen so little. I would take Wright.
Okay, I want to follow this up by saying, just like Brant kind of alluded to, Jalen Wright may not be the direct insurance policy if Achane goes down. Maybe it just means a higher workload for Mostert. I actually think there's just as good a chance as James Conner to get hurt this year, who I do think will have a good role, but I think Conner has just as good a chance to get hurt with his age and everything, and his usage over the past, that Trey Benson might be just as good of a cuff as Jalen Wright, whereas you may just play the guessing game if you have Jalen Wright and Achane and too many mouths in that backfield for me. That would be ideal, probably. And then I said one last question, but Patrick, I'm going to let you take Patrick's question, Patrick. He says pick up Goff to play at quarterback over Dak this week and drop Josh Downs. What do you think would be too much stock on the Lions for the week, having Laporta and Gibbs? So are you playing Goff against the Rams, or are you playing Dak against the Browns, essentially?
It's a much better matchup on paper. I think the Lions offense is better. The Rams are a little better, a much better option to play against than the Browns. But I mean, can you carry 2 quarterbacks? You had to have drafted Dak at a decent pick, unless this is a dynasty team. It is a lot of eggs. This is a tough one. A lot of eggs in one basket. I would just roll with Dak. You can manage to carry 2 quarterbacks. Sure, you're going to need a second at some point between bye week and injury. And I'll go Dak. But if you could find a way to get Goff and keep both, sure.
Okay, Brant, Dak.
Yeah, I'm holding on to Dak here.
Yep, Dak, 3 of us. I was getting ready to click the button, but I saw this one. This one's a quick one for me. Jared says, what team definitely wins this week? First of all, it's not Florida State, just in case he was curious. I think can we all three agree that the Cincinnati Bengals are probably beating the New England Patriots this week? If I had to lock one in, that's probably my most comfortable one this week.
That's my survivor pick.
Okay. All right, boys, that does it for us. No.
Houston over Indy, yes. No, Houston over Indy.
Jared, you take that for what it's worth. That is a Colts fan saying that. So
JT,
right,
200 yards.
Thanks for being live with us this week. For all of you that tuned in, I know Brant and I will be back on Sunday. Patrick, I believe you're going to be live on the Twitter sphere on Sunday as well for the first time. So that's definitely something to look forward to as well for all of you addicts that have to get your advice in and get your questions asked. We'll see you guys all on Sunday.
It's good to be back.